Cowboy Nation, how are you doing today, man? How's everybody doing today, man? And wanted to check in with you for a second. We ain't gonna be on here long because just want to check in before the rest of the guys get started going because I want to watch some of these shows that's coming up by some of these people like Boss and maybe Law's going to come from the if he's still out in training camp and some of the other guys that usually do shows at the end of the week. We want to watch those. Um, As we're gonna answer, I'm gonna answer some of y'all questions. Whoever's in on the live in the chat, we're gonna if y'all got a question, we'll try to answer that question. If you got a question in there that you want to talk about a certain thing and see how I feel about certain issues. But I want to talk about, as you see the title of my live is it's just football, man. I talked to a Cowboy fan today, and man, we got Cowboy fans that getting nervous about these injuries to the offensive line. Listen, Tyler Guyton injury was a roll up. I mean, those things happen. We dodged the bullet. Um, I don't think we. I say we dodged the bullet. We didn't dodge a bullet like I would want to dodge the bullet, but we did dodge a bullet that he's not out for the season. Well, it does set him back because he's not getting work. And this training is about everybody on this team needs work. And it's going to take him a while to get back and to get in the rhythm. And hopefully when he gets back, maybe after being around 2 or 3 more weeks, and how they app him up. And I think he'll be all right to try to get in there and do something and get some more. But next man up, we got a very young offensive line, very talented offensive line. But it's just football, people. It's going to be bumps and bruises. But I tell you this. This is the first time I've seen this many aches, injuries, and bumps and bruises that I'm seeing in the first week of practice in Cowboy land in quite a while. Now, when I say that, some people are going to say, well, dog, coach, that's messed up. No, that's good because that means we're working. And I've said this for a long time. I don't think the talent structure has been the problem. We just ain't work hard enough to reap the benefits that we want. I also want to say, man, what's going on, T Smooth? I also want to say this. If you've heard me talk a lot about culture build, I've talked about that on every show about this. I like what Schottenheimer's trying to build this culture and all that. But when you're trying to change the culture of something, or you're trying to step into any situation, and Coach Marv does not like to talk about it in football terms. He tries, football is just a microcosm of life. When you're stepping into any situation, you're trying to change how it's going, what the culture, how they think, how they move, how they think about it, how they go about their business. It's going to be a shock to everybody's system. And you're going to find out that there's going to be some people, and then in the football sense, we're going to find out there's going to be some players that we really love or we like or people that we think are good. Then we're going to find out there's going to be some players that we don't like, that we don't think is good. And we're going to find out in this culture change. Big time, what's going on, brother? We're going to find out in this culture change that some people are not built for the change that you're going to. And I'm glad Big Time Show is in here on this because this is true. This is not only true in football. This is true in anything that you go into that you want to change. You're trying to change how people go about their business. And especially when you're trying to change the culture. You're going to find out that the people that you have, you're going to find out there's going to be some people that you're going to be fond of. You think this is going to be great, but they're not built they're not built to be in this new culture, or they're not going to accept the new culture. And then you're going to find out there's going to be some people in there that you don't think so highly of, and that culture is going to fit them perfectly. But that's all in the adjustment period. Like I said, there's 5 stages of a new culture, and stage 2 is the adjustment. And when I heard Matt Eagleflus sit up on that podium yesterday and talk about we evaluate everybody. So these tough practice, they're evaluating. They're not really, listen, they haven't toned into where we're going to tighten stuff up yet, but they're evaluating to see how hard or how grueling or tough this could be and who's going to tap out or who's going to get better every day. Because they need to find out. In football, you got to find the imposters when you get your team, especially with a new coaching staff. So they're evaluating. And as I said on my last video, Matt Eagleflus told you about the run game. When he was asked that question, I've been trying to say this for the longest, and everybody was, and I understand where they're coming from because that's the canned answer. But when they asked him, the defensive coordinator, you might not believe old Coach Marr, but the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys said, when they asked him about what did you know, and they first asked about a one take by Mars, and then they asked about what it need to be a good run team. And he said teamwork. It takes everybody on my defense for us to be a quality run defense team. He emphasized that. Because I've been watching highlights, and I've been hearing people on Twitter been tagging me on this, and they're watching, Tyler Smith, and some of the plays, Tyler Smith drove Mozzie back, and the guys got some yards. But nobody talks about the rest of the guys in there. There's some other guys that lost their battles too. I never seen a run defense fail because of one guy. And when my players started blaming one guy, we just went to watch film. And in that film, we saw a lot of people lose battles. We saw a lot of people that didn't put enough effort in. And they're doing a lot of evaluation. And we're going to get bumps and bruises. Why we're going to get bumps and bruises is what I talked about yesterday. For everybody that didn't hear what I said yesterday. When you talking about, when your coach said he's building calluses, and I'm going back over again what I said yesterday. Calluses don't come right off the bat. Everybody know when you build calluses on your hands, first they got to go through the maturation process of being sore. And that soft tissue got to get worn off, and they're going to be sore to the touch. And then when the new growth comes, it grows back tougher. And as you keep on going, it gets so tough that these little injuries we getting won't even get those no more. But right now, it's a culture chop because this team ain't never done that before. They probably done practiced one more run plays in the last 3 or 4 days than they probably done practiced live run plays the whole time Mike McCarthy was there. And you know what I'm starting to find out, and that's why I'm coming on this. I'm starting to see content creators and people that's in the building over there, that's close to the building over there in Dallas, start to talk about, are we running the ball too much? Are we concentrating too much on the run game? We have such great wide receivers. This is where it's not, listen, sometimes it's us. Because we understand the Jerry them watch algorithms? So if the nation wanted to be a tough-minded football team, guess what Jerry wants us to be? But the nation wants us to be a finesse football team. And he's going to cater to the nation. That's why I say it's very careful. Be careful about, this flukes type stuff. I had a conversation with a person a while back, and we talked about copycat, and he was talking about copycat league. And the worst thing you could do is when you see somebody doing something successful in a certain way with a certain mentality. Don't mean you got to do it exactly the same way, but that mentality of how you go about your work usually will lead to the same success or close to some of the same success that they have. But you know, most people won't do it. And let's take football, for instance. There's been one dominant team that have played in what? 5 Super Bowls, done won 3 in the last 10 years. And they'll play in the 7 or 8 AFC championship games. That's the Kansas City Chiefs. And don't you know they still the hardest practicing team in training camp? The stuff the Cowboys doing, they've been doing it. But you know, no people don't imitate them. Don't you know that they practice in 100-degree weather because Andy Reid said he's not leaving that place? Don't you know during the season they practice hard? Don't you know Patrick Mahomes, when they talking about they're a passing team, don't you know, and I'm going to give y'all a stat when y'all talking about this is passing league. Don't you know that they gave up a number 1 wide receiver and still won 2 Super Bowls back to back? Don't you understand that last year they didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver? With Patrick Mahomes? Don't you know they run more 12, 2 tight end, 3 tight end sets than anybody else in the league? But guess what? Nobody won't copy them, and they're showing you success. Because you know, most people say, oh, no, we ain't got to do it. I don't like doing it that way. I'm doing it another way. Okay. If I was the Cowboys and I ain't been to the Super Bowl in 30 years, I'll be sitting in there and I'll be sitting there. I'll be watching everything they do and imitating. Don't you know Andy Reid said that he studied the New England Patriots dynasty for so many years and tried to implement the same type of philosophy into the Kansas City, where we develop our players, that when we go out in free agency, we don't go out in free agency to build our team. When guys come up, we already done developed the replacement, and we're not scared of coaching. And don't you know that Patrick Mahomes played every preseason, at least a whole half? Remember, Tom Brady did that every year in New England. Andy Reid was smart enough to say, hey, I'm going to emulate a team that was dominant for 20 years. And don't you know we won't do that? And don't you know if I tell my fans that, they would say, no, we don't need to do it that way. Nah, man, don't do it like that. How many families, just think about this. We know we talk about football. Like I said, football is just a microcosm of life. And I say everything in life is relative. I believe the good Lord made everything with a basic principle of how it works. He didn't make the wheel complicated. Stay disciplined, stay loyal, and let him lead you. It ain't difficult, everything. But how many families have you seen been successful? Right? And the kids say, nah, we ain't going that direction. We ain't gonna do that, and they be failing. I ain't gonna do it like dad and mom do it and fail. And act like it's all right. Nobody say you had to be the spitting image. But if they show you a philosophy, why would you go somewhere and do it different and fail? If the wheel hadn't been broke, what you're supposed to do is enhance the wheel. But you got some that say, no, we're not going to do it that way. there's been a blueprint that the Cowboys have followed that won championships. Now, when I say this, people going to say, Coach, you're talking that old school stuff, but let's think about it. I'm going to give you the blueprint of the 70s, and then I'm going to give you the blueprint of the 90s, and tell me if I'm wrong. If you're in the chat, tell me where I'm wrong. Tom Landry was known as one of the hardest training camp, hard-nosed coaches you're going to find. He was a defensive-minded person first, but he had a very great offensive mind, but his knowledge was defense. Right? When he won his first Super Bowl in Dallas, they drafted 12 guys. I forgot they say the draft that made them better. They drafted 11 guys, and most of those guys started and became all pros. They had a great quarterback in Roger Staubach, but they had a great running back in Tony Dorsett. They had their offensive line was top notch. Tom Rafferty, Herb Scott should be in the Hall of Fame, come out of Virginia Union. Tom Rafferty, great offensive line, great defensive line, and a great defense. Was innovative. Roger Staubach never had the numbers as Fran Tarkenton or Dan Fouts or the quarterbacks in that era that threw the ball a whole lot. Roger Staubach never had those stats, but he had great stats, but he never had the top stats. They had the best defense. Their defense won a Super Bowl in 77 and got 7 turnovers, I think. At that time was the best turnover margin in a Super Bowl by defense. 2 defensive players won the MVP. Harvey Martin and Randy White. Co-MVPs. Roger Staubach didn't throw a touchdown pass. Newhouse threw one of the touchdown passes. Now let's look at the team in the 90s. Emmitt Smith broke the records that Tony Dorsett set. Troy Aikman never had the stats of Elway and all them in when you talk about stats for the year. Michael Irvin replaced was the same thing that Drew Pearson was. When Drew Pearson played, they had a young Tony Hill that was the long threat. Then that's Alvin Harper. Wrote the same number 80. Jay Novacek was the tight end. People remember a tight end named Billy Joe Dupree. Go look up the story of Billy Joe Dupree on that guy that I need to get his name, but he's a YouTube guy and he does a lot of Cowboy breakdown. You will see that Billy Joe Dupree should be in the Hall of Fame. A lot of Cowboys don't get in the Hall of Fame. The Cowboys defense was the number 1 defense in the league when they won their first Super Bowl. People, I want to talk about the triplets, but they had the number 1 defense. When the Cowboys won the Super Bowl, they had the number 1 defense. Multiple defensive linemen, great linebackers. Charles Haley, Harvey Martin. Tony Tolbert, Too Tall Jones. D.D. Lewis in the middle, Ken Norton Jr. The same makeup. The same stuff. Jimmy Johnson was a hard-nosed coach. He had one of the hardest training camp. The same makeup got us to the Super Bowl. And they had a coach that did not care about, man, we tied with it. No. The exact same. And listen, they had stories. Listen, Harvey Martin and Hollywood Henderson, they had stories. They had shows and all that. They was wild. They ran great. But when it came to football, when it came to inside, at that time, Valley Ranch, you had to get your football on. And when you got it with Jimmy Johnson, you had to get your football on. Then they say you can't be crazy or wild. But when it came to football, it was a different story. It don't change. When you hear the phrase that everything under the sun, there is nothing new under the sun, there ain't nothing new. And when I say history repeats itself, if you got a history, I've always watched this. I always said this. If a team has a history or organization, and I'm not even gonna talk, I'm gonna talk about other organizations. When we talk about the Cowboys, I'm gonna talk about other organizations. So y'all can say, well, it just ain't this with the Cowboys. Pittsburgh Steelers have never won a Super Bowl without a top 3 defense. That's in the 70s. That's in the 90s. They have never been to a Super Bowl without a top 3 defense. I don't care what year you do it is. Every time they have never went to a Super Bowl without a top 3 defense and a top 5 rushing attack. Never. All those years that they had Antonio Brown and Roethlisberger were throwing the ball for 100,000 yards, they never got there. The year he did get there, they had the ball, the bus was running the ball, and they had an outstanding defense. The 2 years that he won Super Bowl. Yeah, he threw some passes, but they still had a running game and a top 10 defense. Kansas City Chiefs, back in the Tex Ram, back when they first won their first Super Bowl, they were known as one of the most multiple offenses in that time and explosive, but they had an outstanding defense. They was not known for doing, but they had they did a lot of different formations. What they do now? The Eagles went to the Super Bowl the first time with Willie Montgomery and a great running attack. Yes, they went to the Super Bowl with Terrell Owens, but their philosophy came with when they had great defense and they could run the football. Until the Bears get a quality defense, they'll never win. Every year that they ever had quality defense, even when Lovie Smith was there, they won. And they had a quarterback that wasn't nobody, but they got to the Super Bowl because they had an outstanding defense. Teams have a DNA that follows the team through the history. That's just when you got something, it falls back in it. It's just like your family tree. You wonder why some of y'all turn out to be great carpenters. And then when y'all look at y'all family history, you had 100,000 carpenters back in your ancestry tree. And you be like, well, dog, why it came so easily to me? Duh. So having a great defense and having a quality run game is the blueprint. I'm finna tell you something else. Go back and check the history. The Cowboys have never played in the NFC Championship game. Y'all talking about y'all want to get to the NFC Championship game. Okay. They have never played in the Super Bowl or won a Super Bowl or won an NFC Championship or lost an NFC Championship game without having a top 10 defense and a top 3 rushing attack. Go check it. And they've been to the NFC Championship game probably more than any other team. We had a run of NFC Championship games when we just won all the time. That's why I say the Cowboys' dominance is not going to be held back because we have all been so dominant for so long. When we rise, we're going to come back and we're going to come back with vengeance. So when y'all talking about doing it somewhere, y'all fan base, some of our fan base is just like that fan base that got a family member that their family has been successful, started their own businesses, done everything, and the kids say, "Oh, I don't want to do that," and they still living with their parents, living off their parents because they say they don't want to do that because they don't want to be like them. So it's just football. So when we talking about this off season about what we're going through with injuries, Tyler Smith left practice today because they say he has some tendonitis. Well, guess he might got some tendonitis because he run those sprints. Y'all asked what Schottenheim was trying to do, right? Let me tell you what Schottenheim was trying to do when he's talking about running those sprints. He's not really hurting nobody with the sprints, but he has to show that he's the alpha on that field out there. That's right. He got to show he's the alpha, and he's setting the parameters, and the coaches are setting the parameters about what's going to be, what we're going to take, what we're going to allow, and what we ain't going to allow. So you could be the alpha on a situation, but you ain't got to bolster and brag and stand out in the top of the heap. See, everybody know the Lions is the head of the pack, the head lion. But the head lion only comes out there when he has to come out there. He could be sitting in the tree. He ain't got to be out there standing in front of everybody to tell everybody, but his voice carries. That's all you need to do. And you have to set those parameters, and let's go with it. I love their practice in the run game. And I'm loving that when I watch some film, when I watched it, and it's hard to get, you're not really getting those things. I always say, man, highlights and snaps and snaps, don't go